the precision of mortal hands. The repair station, Artemis, hung in geosynchronous orbit above Centauri Prime, its sprawling docking bays and intricate maintenance arms resembling a mechanical spider suspended against the velvet backdrop of space. Unlike the sleek, almost organic designs of alien stations that dotted the galaxy, Artemis was distinctly human, practical, sometimes ungainly, but undeniably effective. Chief Engineer Eliza Hawthorne stood at the central observation deck, her weathered hands resting on the railing as she surveyed the organized chaos below. At 52, she'd spent more than half her life in this station, building its reputation one impossible repair at a time. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and the lines around her eyes spoke of both laughter and concentration under pressure. "Chief, we've got an incoming emergency request," called Technician Jameson from the communications console. "It's Valtraxian, ambassador-class vessel." Eliza raised an eyebrow. The Valtraxians were among the most technologically advanced species in the known galaxy, beings who had mastered dimensional folding and quantum engineering before humans had even left their solar system. Their ships were elegant marvels, self-repairing for the most part, with systems so advanced that many considered them borderline sentient. "Valtraxian, that's unusual. What's the damage profile?" she asked, already moving toward the main terminal. "They're not saying much, just that it's critical and they've specifically requested us, by name." "Interesting," Eliza murmured. "Prep Bay 4, get Rodriguez and Okada on standby, and tell Dr. Nakamura we might need his quantum expertise." The Valtraxian ship arrived within the hour, a gleaming vessel that resembled a massive teardrop of liquid mercury, its surface rippling with iridescent patterns that shifted like oil on water. Despite its beauty, Eliza's trained eye immediately caught the irregularities in its propulsion field and the subtle asymmetry in its approach vector. As the ship docked, its captain, Ambassador Zerthal, emerged from the airlock. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with metallic hues, the Valtraxian cut an imposing figure. "Chief Engineer Hawthorne," the ambassador's voice resonated with a harmonic quality unique to their species. "Your reputation extends far beyond human territories. We find ourselves in a predicament." Eliza nodded respectfully. "Ambassador, welcome to Artemis. Tell me what's happening with your ship." The ambassador gestured with one of their lower arms. "Our vessel houses technologies beyond what most species comprehend. Yet, 3 of our finest engineer teams have failed to resolve the issue we're experiencing. Our phase shift drive is experiencing cascade failures that defy our diagnostic algorithms." "And you need to be somewhere soon, I'm guessing?" Eliza asked. "The Galactic Council convenes in 36 hours. My presence is required for certain diplomatic measures that cannot be delayed." Eliza nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Council met rarely, and its decisions shaped interstellar policy for decades. "Let's take a look then," she said simply. The interior of the Valtraxian vessel was a marvel of engineering, spaces that seemed to fold into themselves, corridors that shifted orientation depending on need, and control interfaces that responded to thought patterns rather than physical interaction. The engine room, however, was where the true wonder lay. The phase shift drive core, a technology humans had only theoretical understandings of, pulsed with energies that shifted between states of matter. Around it, Valtraxian engineers moved with precise, calculated movements, their forearms manipulating tools that seemed to phase in and out of reality. "We have run 1,247 diagnostic sequences," explained the chief Valtraxian engineer, Trelvex. "The anomalies defy prediction models." Eliza circled the drive slowly, her eyes narrowed. Unlike her alien counterparts, she carried no advanced scanners, no quantum diagnostics. Instead, she simply observed, occasionally running her hand near, but never touching, the drive's housing. "Your diagnostic approach?" Trelvex inquired, confusion evident in their multifaceted eyes. "Just getting a feel for it," Eliza replied, earning a look of bewilderment from the alien engineer. Eliza called in her team, Rodriguez, a former pilot with an intuitive understanding of propulsion systems, Okada, whose specialty was power distribution networks, and Dr. Nakamura, their resident physicist who had once collaborated with Valtraxian scientists. "This drive doesn't think like we do," Eliza explained to her team as they gathered around the schematics projected above a portable terminal. "But that doesn't mean it doesn't think." "The phase variance in the tertiary systems," Rodriguez pointed out, gesturing to fluctuating readings. "It's almost like it's breathing." "Not random," agreed Okada. "There's a pattern here, but it's not algorithmic, it's more organic," finished Eliza. "The drive is responding to something environmental, not mechanical." The Valtraxian engineers watched this exchange with increasing interest. Their species approached engineering as a purely mathematical discipline, problems to be solved through computational power and algorithmic precision. The humans, however, spoke of the ship almost as if it were alive. As the human team began their work, the contrast in methodology became even more apparent. Where the Valtraxians had deployed advanced diagnostic arrays and quantum simulators, the humans used a combination of standard tools, jury-rigged sensors, and most bewilderingly to the aliens, their own senses. Eliza placed her palm against a conduit, eyes closed. "There's a vibration here that shouldn't be present." Rodriguez checked the harmonic resonance with the secondary containment field. "That is impossible to detect without quantitative measurement devices," Trelvex objected. Rodriguez simply nodded, retrieved a simple mechanical stethoscope, a tool virtually unchanged for centuries, and placed it against the conduit. "Definitely there," he confirmed, "fluctuating between 4.7 and 5.3 hertz. Hour after hour, the humans worked in a way that seemed chaotic and intuitive rather than methodical. They occasionally argued, drew diagrams by hand rather than computer, and at one point, Okada lay on the floor with her ear pressed against a deck plate, listening to the sounds of the ship. Ambassador Zerthal observed with growing fascination. "Your methods are unorthodox, but effective," Eliza replied without looking up from where she was examining a power junction. "Your ship isn't just a collection of systems, it's a whole entity. Sometimes the problem isn't in the components, but in how they talk to each other." By the 18th hour of work, the human team had developed a theory. The phase shift drive wasn't malfunctioning due to a component failure, but because of a quantum-level synchronization issue that had emerged from the interaction between the drive and the navigational systems. "It's like the ship is getting confused about where and when it is," explained Dr. Nakamura. "The navigational quantum entanglement is feeding back into the drive's phase variance. They're arguing with each other." Just as they were preparing to implement their solution, alarms blared throughout the ship. The drive core's stability was deteriorating rapidly, its glow shifting from a steady blue to a pulsing crimson. "Containment breach imminent," announced the ship's AI in a calm voice that belied the danger. "Phase collapse in 3 minutes." The Valtraxian engineers moved with practiced precision, initiating emergency protocols and evacuation sequences. But Eliza remained at the core console, her fingers flying across the alien interface. "Everyone out," she ordered her team. "I need space to think." "Chief," Okada began to protest. "Now," Eliza said firmly, "I've got this." As the bay cleared, Ambassador Zerthal lingered at the threshold. "Engineer Hawthorne, there is no logical solution within the time constraints." Eliza didn't look up. Good thing humans aren't always logical then. Alone with the increasingly unstable drive, Eliza did something that horrified the watching Valtraxians on the external monitors. She disconnected the safety systems, the monitoring arrays, and the automated regulators, effectively removing all the technological safeguards that kept the drive from catastrophic failure. "What is she doing?" Trelvex gasped. "She has removed all control systems." In the engine room, Eliza placed her hands directly on the now exposed drive housing, feeling the pulses of energy that coursed through it. With the electronic interfaces removed, she was working purely by instinct and experience, manually adjusting the physical components that channeled the quantum energies. "Come on," she whispered to the ship. "Show me what's really bothering you." The countdown reached 30 seconds. On the observation deck, the Valtraxians prepared for emergency protocols. But then, gradually, the crimson pulse of the drive began to steady, shifting toward purple, then blue, and finally settling into a calm, steady azure glow. When Eliza emerged from the engine room 10 minutes later, her face was streaked with sweat, and her hands trembled slightly from exertion. But her eyes held the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. "Your drive had a quantum hiccup," she explained to the astonished ambassador. "The safety systems were actually preventing it from self-correcting. Sometimes technology needs room to breathe." "You treated our ship as if it were." Zerthal struggled to find the concept. "Alive," Eliza suggested. "In a way, it is. The most complex systems develop their own patterns, their own quirks. Your diagnostic algorithms were too perfect, too rigid to see the organic nature of the problem." As the Valtraxian engineers rushed to verify and understand what had happened, Ambassador Zerthal regarded Eliza with new respect. "We have visited repair facilities across 12 galaxies," they said quietly. "Yet it is always to humans that we return when conventional methods fail. I believe I now understand why." Eliza smiled tiredly. "We're still figuring out space travel while you've mastered it, but perhaps that's our advantage. We haven't forgotten how to listen to machines with our ears instead of sensors, to feel problems instead of just calculating them." As the ambassador prepared to depart for the Galactic Council, a new understanding had formed, not just of human engineering practices, but of a fundamental truth about technology across the universe. Sometimes the most advanced solution was the simplest one, the human touch, beyond algorithms and logic. The Artemis repair station hummed with renewed energy following the successful intervention on the Valtraxian vessel. Word had spread quickly through the interstellar communications network. Yet another, impossible, repair accomplished by human hands. For Eliza Hawthorne, however, the work was far from complete. "The phase shift harmonics are stabilized, but there's something else," she told her team during their debriefing in the station's common area. "Something that doesn't add up." Dr. Nakamura nodded, his usually calm demeanor troubled. "The quantum fluctuations we observed, they weren't entirely natural. There was a pattern underneath that suggested." "Deliberate interference," finished Rodriguez, leaning forward. "I thought I was imagining it." Eliza's expression hardened. "Which means the ambassador's ship wasn't just malfunctioning, someone wanted it to fail." On the other side of the station, Ambassador Zerthal stood in the observation lounge, 4 arms clasped behind their back as they gazed at the stars. Their iridescent skin reflected the distant starlight, creating patterns of light that danced across the viewport. "Fascinating creatures, these humans," they said without turning as Eliza entered the room. "Your species achieved space flight mere centuries ago. You've barely mastered basic molecular manipulation. Yet you possess an intuition about machines that eludes even the oldest species in the galaxy." Eliza moved to stand beside the ambassador. "We're still close enough to our primitive roots to remember what it's like to not understand everything. Sometimes that's an advantage." The ambassador turned, multifaceted eyes studying her with intense curiosity. "Your repair methods defy our analytical models. You touched the phase shift drive directly, an action our safety protocols would never permit." "Sometimes you need to feel a problem to understand it," Eliza explained. "Diagnostics can tell you what's happening, but not always why." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Speaking of why, the issue with your drive wasn't accidental." The ambassador's skin rippled with a pattern that Eliza had come to recognize as alarm. "You are certain?" The quantum signature had markers of deliberate manipulation. Someone with extremely advanced knowledge of Valtraxian technology wanted your ship to break down, possibly catastrophically. Zerthal was silent for a long moment. "The council meeting I am to attend? We are voting on a treaty that would significantly shift power dynamics in the outer rim sectors. My absence would ensure the measure passes without Valtraxian objection. Political sabotage, Eliza nodded, and they nearly succeeded. Had we gone to any other repair facility in the quadrant, they would have, the ambassador acknowledged. Only humans would have approached the problem as you did. Back in the engineering lab, Okada and Dr. Nakamura were examining the data they'd extracted from the Valtraxian drive. They had constructed a makeshift quantum resonance scanner, a human-designed interface connected to borrowed Valtraxian components. There, Okada pointed to a sequence of fluctuations that repeated with unnatural precision. That's not random degradation, that's a programmed sequence. The sophistication is remarkable, Dr. Nakamura murmured. It was designed to appear as natural drive deterioration to standard diagnostics, but look at the pattern when we filter out the background quantum noise. The holographic display revealed a complex but distinctly artificial pattern, like a signature left behind by whoever had sabotaged the ambassador's ship. I recognize elements of this code structure, Nakamura said suddenly. It bears similarities to Zephyrian quantum programming. Okada looked up sharply. The Zephyrians, but their Valtraxian allies. Officially, Rodriguez said from the doorway where he'd been listening. But they stand to gain mineral rights in the outer rim if the treaty passes. When Eliza presented their findings to Ambassador Zerthal, the Valtraxian's skin darkened to a deep, troubled bronze. This evidence is compelling, yet it would be insufficient in council proceedings. Quantum signatures can be disguised, falsified. Then we need to find more concrete evidence, Eliza stated, and I suspect it's still on your ship. With the ambassador's permission, the human team began a more thorough inspection of the Valtraxian vessel. While the alien engineers continued their conventional diagnostics, the humans approached the search differently, looking not just for technological anomalies, but for the human element of sabotage. Whoever did this had to interface with the ship physically at some point, Eliza explained to her team. Even with quantum programming, you need an access point. They divided the ship into sections, methodically examining areas that wouldn't normally be included in standard maintenance checks. It was Rodriguez who finally discovered something in an auxiliary navigation junction, a microscopic device, barely larger than a grain of sand. Quantum trigger, Dr. Nakamura confirmed after careful analysis. Designed to activate remotely and initiate the cascade failure sequence we observed. More troubling was what Okada found embedded in the device, a molecular signature that definitively linked it to Zephyrian technology. We've got them, Eliza said grimly. Ambassador with this evidence. But their conversation was interrupted by the ship's alarm system. On the main bridge, the Valtraxian crew was responding to an emergency alert. The phase shift drive is destabilizing again, Trelvex reported, their voice tight with concern. But differently this time, the quantum matrix is collapsing entirely. Eliza understood immediately. It's a failsafe. They realized we fixed the primary sabotage, so they triggered a backup system. The situation was far more dire than the previous malfunction. The drive wasn't simply malfunctioning now. It was tearing itself apart at the quantum level. If it failed completely, the resulting energy release would destroy not only the ambassador's ship, but potentially the entire repair station. Time to complete system failure, Eliza demanded. 17 minutes, responded a Valtraxian engineer, their hands moving with blurring speed across control interfaces. Eliza turned to Ambassador Zerthal. We need to make a decision now. We can try to stabilize the drive again, but I can't guarantee success given the nature of this attack, or we can jettison the entire drive section. Jettisoning would mean abandoning our mission, the ambassador said. The council convenes in 5 hours. Without our drive, we cannot arrive in time. Then we work with what we have, Eliza decided. Rodriguez, Okada, prepare the emergency containment fields. Dr. Nakamura, I need you to model the quantum collapse pattern and find us a weakness. What followed was a frenzy of activity, unlike anything the Valtraxians had witnessed before. Where their own approach would have involved careful analysis and methodical response, the humans worked with a controlled chaos that bordered on artistry. Eliza had her team bypass the ship's safety protocols entirely, creating direct neural interfaces with the drive systems. It was dangerous, unorthodox, and exactly what was needed. "Conventional methods won't work," she explained to a horrified Trelvex. "The sabotage was designed to counter standard responses. We need to be unpredictable." As the countdown passed the 10-minute mark, Eliza made a radical decision. "We're going to induce a controlled quantum collapse ourselves, but on our terms, not theirs." "That's insanity," Trelvex objected. "You'll destroy the drive completely." "No," Eliza countered. "We'll reset it, like rebooting a system that's caught in a loop." Using a combination of Valtraxian technology and human intuition, they reconfigured the drive's containment fields to channel the building energy rather than suppress it. It was like redirecting a river rather than trying to dam it, allowing the quantum energies to flow along new pathways that would eventually lead them back to stability. With less than 2 minutes remaining, Eliza gave the final command. The drive's glow intensified to a blinding white, energy cascading through the newly created pathways. For a terrifying moment, it seemed as though the entire system would rupture. And then, gradually, the light dimmed to a stable, pulsing blue. "Quantum matrix, stabilizing," reported a Valtraxian engineer, their voice carrying an unfamiliar note of awe. "Drive integrity returning to nominal parameters." In the aftermath, as engineers from both species worked to secure the drive and verify its stability, Ambassador Zerthal sought out Eliza in the station's medical bay, where she was being treated for minor radiation exposure. "You risked your life," the ambassador observed. Eliza shrugged, wincing slightly at the movement. "Part of the job." "It is not. No Valtraxian engineer would have attempted what you did. The statistical probabilities of success were infinitesimal." "That's the difference," Eliza said softly. "You calculate probabilities, we see possibilities." The ambassador was silent for a moment, their skin shifting through thoughtful patterns of color. "We have long considered human technological development primitive compared to other species, yet perhaps we have misunderstood what technology truly is." "How so?" Eliza asked. "We view technology as an extension of science, logical, predictable, mathematically perfect. But you view it as—" the ambassador searched for the concept. "An extension of ourselves," Eliza finished. "Imperfect, intuitive, adaptable. We don't just use machines, we relate to them." With the evidence of Zephyrian sabotage secured and the drive fully functional again, the ambassador's ship departed for the Galactic Council with hours to spare. The diplomatic implications would ripple throughout the galaxy, not just regarding the treaty vote, but in how the advanced species viewed their human allies. 2 weeks later, as the Artemis station had returned to its normal rhythm of repairs and maintenance, Eliza received a message from Ambassador Zerthal. The council vote had been successful, the Zephyrian plot exposed, and a new era of cooperation initiated. But more surprisingly, the message included an official request. The Valtraxian High Command was establishing a new training program for their engineers, and they wanted humans to teach them. "Not our technology," Eliza explained to her bemused team as they gathered in the station's common area. "Our approach to technology, they want to learn how we think. So we're going to teach the most advanced species in the galaxy how to trust their gut," Rodriguez asked incredulously. Eliza smiled. "Exactly, because in all their advancement, they've lost something we still have, the ability to see machines as more than just the sum of their parts." Throughout the galaxy, from the shipyards of Proxima Centauri to the trading hubs of the Outer Rim, the reputation of human repair stations continued to grow. They weren't just places where broken ships were fixed. They were where the most sophisticated technologies in the universe were understood in ways their own creators had forgotten. It wasn't about advanced tools or superior knowledge. It was about something that couldn't be programmed into an AI or calculated by quantum computers. It was the human touch, intuitive, adaptive, and surprisingly irreplaceable even in an age of technological marvels. As new ships arrived at Artemis Station each day, Eliza would often stand at the observation deck, watching the diverse vessels dock. The crystalline ships of the Meridian Collective, the living vessels of the Tessari, the dimension-folding crafts of the elder species. Each represented technological achievements beyond human comprehension, yet each came seeking the same thing, human hands to heal them when all else failed. "Ready for another impossible job?" she would ask her team. And always the answer was the same. A collection of humans armed with intuition, creativity, and that inexplicable connection to machines that made them the most sought-after mechanics in the galaxy.